Good evening. My name is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the host of the Bradley Report. I'm also the president of United in Peace, Inc., and the producer of this show. And the woman that's responsible for helping me to put the issues together is none other than the chairman of United in Peace, Inc., which happens to be my wife, and that's Terry Marsh Bradley. But this show wouldn't be made possible without the help within the studio of Brother Omari. And with that, I want to say to God be the glory. Let's go to work, Omari. You know, the show today is very important. There's two issues I'm going to be speaking on, and that is corporate systemic racism within McDonald's. As you know, a court decision came down the other day where they were talking about that McDonald had the suit dismissed. It wasn't dismissed. It was trimmed down. They got 30 days to come back with a Second Amendment. The other issue I'm going to be speaking about is ingrained corruption and cover-up within the state's attorney's office that was so deep that now that Kim Foxx is the state's attorney. She has to clean up the mess behind the Burge police torture cases. But before I get off on that, let me give you my personal message about senseless shootings and killings. Let's go to work, Omari. If you pick up that gun and you fire that gun, anyone that get harmed from you firing that gun, that's an innocent bystander. We asking the community, ostracize them, push them out, don't let them hide anywhere, don't support them, and let law enforcement do their job. The code is this: if you pick up that gun to solve your problem, I'm not endorsing violence. I'm saying you're violating the code if you discharge that weapon and innocent people get shot or killed, especially a child or an elderly person. And the community must uphold that code.
He got his shoe shined.
The reason that it worked in the 90s, because everyone was a part of it. Kids, women, elderly, was off limits.
You didn't touch him.
Didn't touch them.
Ostracizing from the community, pushing you out of the community, not supporting you in the community or protecting you in the community, so that law enforcement can do their job by apprehending you. And the Cook County State's Attorney can do her job by making sure that you get a fair prosecution. This is so that there's no retaliation in the community because you discharge or you fire that weapon at your intended target. We all got to come together. Those of you, my name is Wallace Gator Bradley. I'm the urban translator. I'm the president of United Peace Inc. We all got to come together to let it be known that Black lives matter everywhere. Regardless if the police shoot somebody that's black, it means twice as much to our community when someone black is shooting someone black.
With at least 8 children under the age of 10 shot in the city in just 2 weeks, some are asking if that code still carries any weight.
There's something that we got to do.
Gator catches up with some friends on Calumet.
That 1-year-old that got killed.
His conversations of late have focused on kids getting shot. He says the rule still applies.
We as men got to put it down and say that still exists. It never left.
We all got a responsibility.
We all got a responsibility, man.
But it never left.
I'm going to call out to all the brothers. You know what we do. Put the word on the street that this is no longer tolerated. Me and Holmes work together and we know how it works. We've been able to help individuals turn themselves in of the community, kick them out, but law enforcement to come and arrest them. Now is the time. Just like it was a video from Miss Frazier and let everybody know about the awakening of George Floyd. Somebody got a video, or we need to use our video to stop this senseless violence.
And I believe that vengeance belongs to the Lord. And with that, I want to say, to God be the glory. And that's my story. You know, there's so much shooting that's happening, shooting and killing that's happening in the city of Chicago. And children are becoming the casualties, the majority of the casualties, in my mind, of this senseless shootings and killing. They're now talking about targeting the game. And I say from experience, when you targeted the games in '94, you left it where we're living in the times that we're living in now. Okay? I'm not condoning any violence or no vigilante activity. I'm saying that law enforcement and the communities have to use all their technology, from an iPhone to a drone, to find the individuals who may be fighting each other, put that attention on them, so that the community, working with law enforcement and business leaders, can help eradicate this senseless shootings and killing by not protecting those that's violating the code. With that being said, let's get into this issue where a judge dismisses the lawsuit against McDonald's by black franchisees. Ari, could you hit that story for me? Thanks, man. That headline is kind of misleading. It said the judge dismissed the lawsuit against McDonald's by the franchisees. What the judge did, Amari, can you take it up a little bit? Come some more. Right there. Right there. What the judge did, he dismissed a portion of the suit and he gave the individuals that filed the suit against McDonald's because of systemic racism, he gave them 30 days to amend it. Okay? He wants them to show specifically who that was representing McDonald engaged in that activity where their franchisees filed a suit. He dismissed the part that even if they were discriminated against, there was a 2-year limitation or a statute of limitation on them being able to file suit. The fact of the matter, and what he said to, from what I read in the court order, is where the judge said, the court does not mean to imply that McDonald's operations over the years have not been tarnished by the brush of racism, but historical discrimination did not justify the lawsuit. That's the evilness of systemic racism. I'm not saying the judge is a racist. I'm talking about what was happening in McDonald's is a part of what is known as corporate systemic racism. The brothers didn't realize, they knew something wasn't right, but they didn't know exactly what was wrong until executives within McDonald's, African-American executives within McDonald's, were discriminated against. They were like whistleblowers, and they told what was happening to the black franchisees as opposed to the white franchisees. And that's when the black franchisees realized that something was wrong from the Black McDonald's Operators Association. It once had 370-some franchisees to be down to 186. Well, understand this. The congressman in Tennessee and Kahari Nash has written to Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and they're asking for a congressional hearing against systemic racism. I am of the opinion that the fact that the judge made mention that he was aware of ingrained racism, pretty much, within McDonald's, that gives the urgency for there to be a congressional and a senatorial hearings against corporate systemic racism. And hopefully they will bring the McDonald's CEO, the McDonald's board of directors president, and the only African American board president, and the Bird brothers and Kahari Nash to come to that hearing and to testify. We have to do that. Everywhere you hear, they talk about systemic racism. The president talking about we got to end systemic racism, be it in politics, be it in the workplace. They got to do these things, and I believe they're going to do it. So I'm saying, Don't Be Mac Food is a national, peaceful, educational protest against McDonald's corporate systemic racism against black people, African Americans. And it has to be eradicated. And it starts with the hearings. And I'm telling you, I'm asking you, call your congressman, call your United States senators and tell them to demand those hearings. Call Dick Durbin, call Duckworth, call all the Democratic legislative bodies that's representing Illinois, especially the African American, and tell them ask for that hearing. Now we're going to move on to the other issue. Brother Kahari, could you go to the other issue where they're talking about the state's attorneys? That might be with the group or the second email. No, it's not on there. You got to go to the second email. Yeah. Where's the second issue? Is that it? No, you was right. The email that you had was right. My bad. Yes, sir. And last week we talked about what these corrupt police officers that was engaging in the torture of African American men to confess to crimes that they didn't do. Those officers were a part of the Burge and his officers. They were subordinates to John Burge. And it was a corrupt assistant state's attorney that was involved in the cover-up. They now are trying to say that they shouldn't be sued because Kim Foxx made it where the individuals were free that was tortured, that had been locked up for almost 20, 30 years because of police misconduct. Now, Omar, could you bring that down where you can see that headline? No, I'm sorry. Come down, come up, however way you do it. I just want to get the topic of the headline where it says, no, come down. Where it's on the screen, where it says cops, ex-prosecutor, wrongful prosecution. Yeah, there you go. That headline reads, cops, ex-prosecutor, wrongful prosecution suit must end because Fox merely dropped the 94 rape murder charge against 2 men. She dropped it because she couldn't have a fair prosecution because the police officers that was involved in the misconduct made it where they weren't a credible witness for the prosecution. Then there's another story. Could you find a story where it say Gerald Reed? Murder convict freed over the COVID risk gets a chance to prove Burge cops tortured him to confess. This story, he's free now. I was working along with his attorney as well as other community activists to help free this brother. And now the governor has given him a pardon or commuted his sentence to time served, but allowing him to be free and fight his case on the street to show where he didn't commit the crime. And the one judge, I gave him the right to get a new hearing. The new judge came in. All he had to do was give him a hearing date. They made the move, and they sent the brother back to the penitentiary. The judge was a former assistant state's attorney, and the special prosecutor was a former assistant state's attorney. That was the judge's, who was a former state's attorney, superior. They came together in the furtherance of a cover-up and sent that man back to the penitentiary. Amari, could you hit the next story that talks about what the Supreme Court? Oh, that was it right there. I'm sorry. Go back to that story. No, not this one. I'm sorry. Go back to the story you had up there. Right. Come down, son. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Put it on the screen. On the screen where I can read it. Okay. J.B. Pritzker released Gerald Reed in April on compassionate grounds because of his risk of getting the coronavirus in prison. But his murder conviction stood until Monday's Illinois Supreme Court ruling. And the Supreme Court ruling pretty much said that Gerald is entitled to a new trial. A man freed from prison last month by Governor J.B. Pritzker, but not exonerated of the double murder that put him behind bars, has been granted a new trial by the Supreme Court. Could you take the story up a little bit? Right. Come on some more. Right there. On April 2nd, Gerald Reed, 52, who says the Chicago police tortured him to get him to confess to killing 2 people on the South Side in 1990, walked out of Stateville Correctional Center near Joliet after the governor commuted his life sentence based on a petition saying he faced serious health risks from the spread of the coronavirus in prison. But his murder conviction has stood until Monday when the Illinois Supreme Court vacated the conviction and ordered a new trial. In seeking a new trial, Reed has said detectives supervised by police John Burge had tortured him. Bring it up a little more. This picture of this guy. Right here. This is an assistant state's attorney, former assistant state's attorney, that had went into private practice. And he ended up getting contracts from the county to be a special prosecutor. Understand he's a former assistant state's attorney. He was the supervisor of another former assistant state's attorney that happened to be the judge that sent Gerald Reed back to the penitentiary. And that's what made the governor give him a pardon. Okay? Because of coronavirus. And this is what made the Supreme Court say he's entitled to a fair trial because of the actions of this guy, Robert Milan, a court-appointed special prosecutor in the case. He wants to retry him. But he's a corrupt, former assistant state's attorney that's engaging in the cover-up of police torture of Gerald Reed. Now, we see where, put that headline on the screen for me. Here we come now. The judge will appoint special prosecutor to probe the conduct of Cook County State's Attorney's Office and Burge-related case that imploded at trial last year. This guy and his brother was tortured, and they have been locked up over 30 years by John Burge police officers. Okay, Amari, could you move that? There you go. Leave it right there. What makes that so important is the fact that Kim Foxx is now the state's attorney. But remember, I've told you before Kim got in there, corruption and racism, systemic racism, was so ingrained that with former Mayor Daley, who was the former state's attorney, was a part of the cover-up of the police torture of John Burge. Then Dick Devine became the state's attorney. And he ended up going into private practice, and he became a lawyer for Burge. Okay? You see the corruption? Then Fast forward to where we are today, where the Supreme Court made a decision to ask for a special prosecutor because the assistant state's attorney that was there before Kim became the state's attorney had engaged in some nefarious things. A special prosecutor will be appointed to investigate potential wrongdoing by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office related to the case of Jackie Wilson, whose trial fell apart last year after a prosecutor admitted to having a relationship with a key witness and then allegedly lied on the witness stand. It is in a broad and blistering ruling. Judge Maldonado on Thursday said what happened here in this court case was an absolute disgrace. At best, the state's attorney's office was inept, he says. At worst, the state's attorney's office was perhaps engaging in some type of cover-up to cover up some sort of misconduct. It wasn't the state's attorney's office. It was the assistant state's attorney that was engaged in the furious actions of misconduct. Assistant state's attorney, not the state's attorney's office, not Kim Fox. Engaged in criminal conduct, not just the allegedly prejudiced former assistant state's attorney, Nick, hard to pronounce that name, but let's go with Nick, okay? Could you move it up a little bit more, Kari? Right there. One of Wilson's attorneys called it a day of reckoning for prosecutors in Cook County, the state and beyond, who for decades, you hear that? For decades, have committed misconduct without fear of being held accountable for their misdeeds. They was doing all of this before Kim became state's attorney. So you still had assistant state's attorneys that's working in the state's attorney's office who are still trying to cover up because of the torture of John Burge with the help of former assistant state's attorneys that become judges, former assistant state's attorneys that go into private practice and become special prosecutors, and state's attorneys that's still within that office that be engaged in cover up. And I'm glad that once Kim Fox found out what was happening, she fired that state's attorney. It is the second time in 2 years that a judge has allowed for a special prosecutor to investigate Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox. But those special prosecutors now, before they became private attorneys, was a part of the evil cabal that was covering up the police tortures. On Thursday, a spokesman released a statement saying that the office welcomes the court's decision. It was glad that the judge made a decision to appoint a special prosecutor. The state's attorney is committed to transparency and accountability in this and all matters, the statement said in part. At earlier court date, Cook County prosecutors had strenuously stood on the fact that what they were doing weren't wrong. What is happening here? And I want all of y'all to realize what's happening. I'm saying, I pray that Judge Maldonado, when he names a special prosecutor, he do his due diligence to make sure that that person was not an assistant state's attorney who went into a private practice and it was involved with anything that had anything to do with John Burge. Maldonado is a good judge, a fair judge. Pray that he do his due diligence and make sure he don't appoint a former assistant state's attorney that had anything to do with the John Burge cases. And with that, my time is coming to an end. I want to say, we're going into the elections. Next week, I'm going to be educating people to who the judges are and those that who need to remain on the bench, and who the bad judges are that shouldn't be on the bench, so that you can cast your vote by being educated to those that's running to become a judge. A corrupt assistant state's attorney, and he end up getting on the bench, corrupts the judicial system. So with that, I want to say, get registered to vote in the next election. Don't choke. We got to keep good judges on the bench like Maldonado. And I want to say, to God be the glory. Get vaccinated, especially within the African American community. To God be the glory. That's my story. And thank you.